Hello everyone, it's Caroline here. I'll just give people a couple of minutes to join us and then we'll get started. Okay everyone, so thanks for joining us. Hopefully you're able to hear okay. As we go through, Nathan and I will have a talk, and then at the end I will ask if anyone has any questions. So feel free of course then to unmute yourself and please ask any questions if you do have. So I'd like to thank you, Nathan, and welcome you to this session. And first of all, can I perhaps get you to talk a bit about what types of works Monash accepts, Monash University Press or publishing accepts, and to, of course, introduce yourself.
Hi, Caroline. Thanks very much for inviting me along to take part in this. Yes, I've introduced myself. I've been in this role for 10 years, coming up to 10 years as Director of Monash University Publishing, which is housed in the library here at Monash. I must say it was comforting when I met Bob Geraghty, the new librarian. He said that, you know, for me, having come from North America, Nathan, it's not unusual at all to have a library based with a publisher based in it. So that was good to hear. And prior to that, I had a foot in academia and in publishing in various roles for the previous 10 years at different places. Mm-hmm. As for the press here at Monash, we publish primarily in a number of different series across the humanities and social sciences. As I guess a lot of us would be aware, book publishing is dominated by the humanities fields, and the natural sciences tend to focus on journal publishing. So we have strengths, especially in Australian studies and history and biography, but also in Asian studies, particularly Indonesian studies, South Asian and Southeast Asian studies. Monash, of course, has had great expertise in those fields going back from the beginning, and there was a Monash Asia Institute Press, which was established here in the 1970s, and in 2011, I think it was, we incorporated that press into Monash University Publishing, and I have tried to maintain that Asian Studies publishing. And recently, in the last couple of years, I got some external funding from the Copyright Agency, actually, to research publishing opportunities in Indonesia, India and Malaysia. And so what I said then to Monash was, these are important student markets for you, and I'll try to build our profile in those territories, particularly by putting in place partnerships with publishers based there who can be on the ground and push your books more effectively there.
Okay, and what sort of quantity of works would Monash University Press publish? Like, is it increasing or decreasing? Or
Well, it's staying about the same. It's been around 20 to between 20 and 25 books a year, which is a lot. For our team is 3.6 or 3.8 full-time equivalent or something. So it is twice the number, the average number of university press titles per staff member, as measured by the Association of University Presses in 2016. My understanding when I came here was that the university wanted us to have quite err on the side of having a large output.
Yeah.
When you have a large output, there are some implications in terms of how much you are able, or rather unable, to push them then with the marketing and sales. So personally, well, I say personally, we are going to reduce the number of titles that we're doing a bit, but that we might reduce a little bit the number that we're commissioning while maintaining the number that we are obtaining from overseas through those, especially through those partnerships that I've touched on with publishers based in those overseas territories.
And do you print, when you publish a book, is it in print, or do you publish any online?
We do, everything is in print, or more or less everything, but we do electronic as well at the same time. The print sales are still really important as far as your revenue goes. It's, for a variety of reasons, it's hard to get very much revenue back from ebooks. So if you're going to just focus on ebooks, then you're going to have to factor in how to deal with that drop off in revenue. And there's not a lot less work with doing an ebook from doing a print book. You've still basically got to produce the same thing. It's just that final step of the actual manufacturing step, which is not there. And print cost, well, I mean, it seems to me quite, print costs have come down in recent decades. They've gone up a little bit in the last year or two with paper shortages, but it's still not a huge component of the overall cost, actually.
It's really interesting because I would have thought it was the other way around in terms of, you know, because the message we're getting is so much is available online. So, yeah, it's interesting what you're saying.
Well, part of the challenge and the interesting thing of this role has been, of course, being based in a library, we have an interest in open access publishing, and we do a lot of that. But you need to do that in a way which doesn't alienate some of your business partners, namely the distributors and the retailers, who you are counting on to get the print book out there. And that print book being out there, I think, is important in terms of the overall prestige of the brand in a number of ways, including it remains very important for authors to have their books in bookstores, partly perhaps for emotional reasons, but it's through being in bookstores that you can get your books reviewed in the broadsheet press and in other major review publications. You can be eligible for prizes, and you may get that impact in that way.
So you've already mentioned sort of the areas that you focused on to some extent. I'm just interested, do you publish anything that covers law at all, or not so much?
I haven't. I don't know that market well. My understanding is it's obviously there are players who are already there, and they have that expertise and that established position. Also, I'm conscious that we've been kind of working at full capacity, so I'm not wanting to take on more than I can chew. The only thing I'm holding up to the microphone so you can all look at it, the Pericleans, plumbers and practitioners, the first 50 years of the Monash University Law School.
Absolutely.
So occasionally we do, you know, the last thing you want to be seen as is a vanity publisher, but I think people understand that when you're a university press based in a particular university that it's legitimate to do, and this is a quality work by Peter Yule and Faye Woodhouse, who are very well-credentialed historians. It's legitimate to do these kinds of institutional histories, and we've done them of faculties, education faculty, the Indigenous Studies program here, we did work on that. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to move into law publishing in that area, and I always, I think of, I know so many people in the law, they're just such marvellous readers, and we sort of seek those connections, but I haven't developed that area of our publishing as yet.
No, that's just interesting how kind of diversity is anyway. So at what point would Monash University Publishing get involved in things? Like, would you be sent an idea from an author, or is it more the finished product, or is it somewhere in between?
Yes, it's a combination of those things. We've got a spreadsheet there of submissions, and there's not many of them that get up as a percentage anymore. It's there's a great big red column, and occasionally, you know, the green broken up by a green. And personally, I must say I find it a bit hard because there's so many worthwhile projects, and I live with guilt of various kinds in this job, including the guilt of not being able to do a lot of good books. But any publisher needs to specialise, and that's what we're doing. If you spread yourself too thin, then you don't have a clear identity. But I actively pursue authors and all their agents. And one of the things I've done in this role is use or build relationships with series editors. So I have each series that we publish into, each area of specialisation, has a series editor who is a academic either based here at Monash or based elsewhere, who has expertise in that area. And I try to deal with them rather than directly with with authors because that's just more manageable in terms of the time.
Mm.
They, of course, as I've said, have that area of expertise, so that I say to them, you keep an eye out for what's coming through, and they'll often, be in touch and say, so and so is working on this. Let's try and grab it. And also, having been in the job now for this time, and the press having been around for this time, professors and others in areas that we publish in will often contact me and say, here's a work which has come to my attention. It might be a PhD that they've marked, or it might be, for a number of ways that they might have realise that this work is out there, and they say, Nathan, you really should have a look at this. And I feel very fortunate about that these people established luminaries.
Yep.
They giving us that opportunity and thinking of us, and it makes my job easier. So there's those range of ways that works come in.
And do you offer things like support to publishers, like proofreading? Although I was told by a publisher once that no one ever proofreads anything anymore, which is, it's like, well, I think they should be doing that.
If they're not.
Yeah.
No, we do that, and that's part of what I'm looking at when I look at a proposal is not just can this person write, but can this person edit? Because if the work looks like it's going to come with a big editorial bill, then that's something you need to take into account of when you do the profit and loss budget for the book at the outset. So no, we handle the editing, and I use mainly freelance editors. Which I feel a little ambivalent about. In a perfect world, we would have editors in-house probably, but they're very good, and they seem to me to work pretty economically. They're some of the most under-acknowledged experts in our society, probably. So yeah, we do all of our books individually designed. We do have a designer who is in-house. In fact, a lot of publishers outsource all that design work, but we have a designer in-house, and we do most of our layout in-house. And we put quite a lot of effort, quite a lot of emphasis on marketing, and I regard that as one of the really core contributions through which the publisher adds value to the work. Because obviously you're editing to craft the thing, and I edit books. I edit quite a number of our titles myself. I have a long background in editing. You can add value in that way, but also then in communicating the value of what you're doing. And there's a big difference between putting out a media release and getting over the line with radio interviews and media excerpts and so on. I think that kind of communication is very sophisticated. When you're dealing with a journalist and you're trying to use whatever diplomacy you can muster, and whatever you know of that person and his or her interests, and why, and then sort of why they need to do this book and how they will be sort of left behind if they are not featuring this book and so on. That's a big emphasis.
Yeah, I always find it fascinating. No matter what sort of area you go into, there's a lot of work that goes on that people don't really see. So, like designers, did you say, for books? So, what kind of role would they have? Is that just like the pictures, or you said the layout as well?
Yes. So, with each book, as a publisher, you conceptualise it initially in terms of, well, what's the market for it, and specifically, is it a work for an academic audience or for an audience beyond that? And that So then when you think about what the book is going to look like, and that includes the font, the design, how the text appears on the page, the trim size. Again, you can't see it unfortunately, but I did bring in, most of our works are in a standard C format book, 234 by 153 millimetre, academic sort of largish book. But we do funkier versions, including this one I'm holding up, Tinkering, which is more of a square shape. And then, so at least you can see, Caroline, that the page numbers are on the side. There's the text is broken up by these little graphics, which used to be called dinkus, a dinkus. I think the terminology may have moved on, but that's what I'm still calling it. Yes, and then the images, how they are used, the colour within the images, if we're using colour, the tone, so they are manipulated, and then the cover, the spine, the back, all of it sort of goes into conveying a impression about the book that this is right for a particular audience.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I think through a publisher I first heard the term about, the point size of a font, yes. Yeah. Or how, if that's the right way of saying it. So I was like, oh, new terminology, which is really, really interesting. So, so what a typical day look like for you? Do you do a lot of hands-on work with the books, or is your role as the director kind of in a different direction?
Well, because as I've mentioned, we do probably more books than is ideal for a team of our size. So each day, almost always, there are fairly urgent things for me to address of an operational nature. For instance, say this morning, one of our books has been an unexpected, well, it's been a success. I expected it to be a reasonable success. I printed 2,000 copies in Singapore, thinking, well, at least that's making an allowance for a good performer. But it sold through those very quickly, and so then we had to reprint in Australia because the turnaround time to get it from Singapore off the ship and then off the docks and so on was too long. So we printed it twice in Australia with a local printer, but then that local printer has decided that they've been undercharging us for this particular type of book, so they've doubled their price. So I've had to go looking for other printers in Australia, and we use a number of printers. So I got the printing quote a couple of days ago from one in Sydney, and then but I've been waiting on another one to come from another printer. So there, these are things that now I have to remember today before I go to make a decision. If that other one doesn't come through, we'll go with the one in Sydney. And so so there's that. Then you might well be aware there's a new system for the university to handle its relationships with suppliers. That's a headache for us because we pay royalties to authors. This happens to be the time of year when we pay them, or March in fact, and all of a sudden the authors are getting sent this rather bureaucratic communication saying you need to register with us as a supplier and provide bank statements and so on. So I'm trying to resolve that. But anyway, there are always production things and sort of urgent operational things. But I have a little note that I put next to my desk there, which is says notes, which means write up notes from your meetings yesterday, because if you don't do that, then there's no point having meetings. Urgent emails, and I might, star them or whatever. And then commissioned titles, signed up titles,
Yeah.
so titles that are in the pipeline. What do I need to do to move those forward?
Yeah.
They might need to go refereeing and so on, and you don't want them just sitting there.
Yeah.
And then submitted titles. So also, I mentioned the guild that I live with in this job, and a big part of that is the submissions and trying to get to them quickly enough and communicate with the series editors quickly enough that we can get back to the authors sooner rather than later. And then if I get through those things, then there's business development, which is, you know, where are the markets that we should be looking at? How can we improve our access to those? The terms with which we are accessing those dealings that we might be doing there. And then marketing and sales. And you know how we're going to maximise the sales, how we're going, you know, what can we do to lift the profile. So I think that is the kind of the logical setting out of what I should do each day, but it would be very rare that I would actually, would go through in those steps.
Yeah, of course.
But I have them there to sort of remind me of that. In a perfect world, that's what I would be doing.
Yeah, for sure. So yes, that certainly sounds full on. So with all of that, do you get to read everything that you publish?
Not everything, but a lot of it I do. Yes, particularly because I'll discuss it with the series editors, and so I want to at least know what I'm talking about and make them feel as series editors that they're not just on their own.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing media for the work, so talking to journalists about it, then I need to have a grasp of it.
Yeah.
And quite a number of books, as I say, I edit myself, so I have that. I read them in the course of that. Although strangely, I find with copy editing, because you're focusing on it sentence by sentence, you don't necessarily have it's not the same as having read it.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'd write a review of it, for instance, after having done that.
No, it's a different sort of mindset. And yeah, absolutely. So I can't resist asking, do you have a favourite book?
As in what I've published?
Yeah. Or is it sort of like having a favourite child? You can't say.
Yeah, it is a bit. I think it is a bit like that. I'll say that there's certain books I'm very proud to have published.
Yeah.
And one that comes to mind is a book called Northern Lights, the positive policy example of Denmark, Sweden, Finland and Norway. Because I think it's a really important book, and I worked on it with the author, Andrew Scott, Professor Andrew Scott.
Yeah.
And I just think that we go on looking to Britain and the United States for policy models, in spite of the fact that their social outcomes on a lot of measures are not so great. And we have there in those Scandinavian areas examples of nations which they do so much better than us, and the US and the UK on again this range of social measures and economic measures. Sweden has outperformed the United States over decades in its growth rates, in spite of having a very high tax level. Sweden has half the infant mortality rate of Australia. And it's hard to argue that is not significant. So I think that's a book that I keep thinking of as, and a friend of mine who makes a lot more money than I do, and thus travels business class, was on a plane going to wherever it was going to, but there near him was Chris Bowen, Shadow Treasurer, reading that book.
Oh, yeah. Ah.
And I thought, well, I hope he learned something from it. But you know, it was you know, it does make you think, well, that was a good contribution.
Yeah, absolutely.
To our public debate.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, that's an impressive contribution. Okay, so does anybody else want to ask any questions? Hopefully you'll be able to unmute yourself and ask a question if there are any.
Is there anyone still there?
Yeah, is there anyone? No, it says there's 7 people out of 101. So there's 7 people online. No questions? Okay, so you oh, wait, someone put their hand up. Is that a question coming? Dashboard. Okay, I can't see. Hang on, maybe I need to open the. Sorry, I need to open the window. Okay, I can't see anyone's asking a question. Look, if there are any questions, please feel free to email me later on, and I can pass it on to Nathan, and he'll get back to you. Click to see whose hands are raised, which I'm doing. Oh, okay, wait. Sorry, everyone. Okay. Okay, no, it seems there's no questions. Okay, so please feel free, email me later on if need be. Okay, sorry about that. We might need to clarify this for next time. Yeah, I am, but it's not. Yeah, Michelle. It is, but it's not. Hand raised for a minute. I'm not sure what happened. Yeah, okay. Got a questioned pane. Oh. Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry, Michelle. I saw I've just gone in and seen your questions. Can you say the book title again that you were just talking about, Nathan?
Oh, was that The History of the Law?
No, that was the one on the plane with
Northern Lights was the name of the title. The positive policy example of, I think it's Sweden, Denmark, Norway and Finland. I can never remember the exact order that they're in. But,
okay.
Yeah, Northern Lights, Andrew Scott.
Okay, and I assume as well that all the publications would be on, there's a website for Monash Uni Press?
Yes, there's a website which is outdated, but we live in hope of getting an updated one once we resolve branding questions with the university.
Okay, there, fantastic. Thanks, Michelle. Okay, so we're going to finish up now. Thanks everyone for coming along and listening in. And I'll try to smooth out the clicking. I had to click a couple of things when I saw there were a few questions, so sorry about that, apologies. We are recording this session, so I'll save that and we'll add it to the website so people who weren't able to come along can listen to that as well. So I'll end the webinar. Thanks everyone for coming, and I'll speak to you all soon. You know, at different times, I'm sure. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Just going to get into there. Thanks, Carol. Lovely. Now, I'm just going to go back to how I do that. Okay, maybe if I just log out. Very annoying. I don't know why that's not letting me do that. Oh, there, okay. So then we've got to do file, exit in webinar.